Okay, we are going to call this regular meeting of the Rutherford Board of Education to order at 7:30 p.m. We're going to start by asking everyone to please rise, if you can, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right, ask Mr. Kelly to please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed,
Here.
Mr. Conti,
Here.
Mr. Healy,
Here.
Mrs. Jones,
Present.
Mrs. Librera,
Here.
Mr. Mazzone,
Here.
Dr. Racine,
Here.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Here.
Dr. Rolati.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meeting of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Rutherford Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place posted on the bulletin board outside the Borough Clerk's office, mailed to the Herald, South Bergenite, and the Record newspapers, and filed with the Borough Clerk. Hard copies of the agenda are available in the meeting room, and the agenda is posted electronically on Friday before the meeting date on the district's website at www.rutherfordschools.org. This regular meeting of the Rutherford Board of Education will be held as scheduled in the cafeteria at Rutherford High School. In accordance with the Governor's Executive Orders 152, 156, and 173, limiting indoor gatherings to the lesser of 25 people or 25% of the room's capacity, however, this meeting will also be conducted utilizing video conferencing as allowed by the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6, as amended by PL 2020-C11. As only a limited number of members of the public will be able to attend the meeting in person, members of the public are encouraged to participate by logging on to the following website at 7:30 p.m. as listed in the agenda. All members of the public participating remotely will be muted throughout the meeting, although opportunities for public comment will be made available to those participating remotely, as well as to those attending the meeting in person during the public comment portion of the meeting, at which time they will be unmuted. A video recording of the video conferencing meeting will be made available on the district's website, www.rutherfordschools.org, subsequent to the meeting. The video link can be found by opening the Board of Education link and clicking on Public Meetings and then Videos. So board members should have received in their packet 2 sets of minutes to approve, regular meeting minutes and executive session minutes from November 16th, 2020. Does anyone have any comments or questions about those minutes? Hearing none, I'll ask Mr. Kelly to please enter those. And we are going to turn it over to Vraj, our student representative.
So to begin with, the clubs that the school has are trying to stay on via Zoom, and we're doing multiple drives now. We're doing a toy drive for Christmas and also a blanket drive. For the yearbook club, we're doing superlatives, and we started that this week, and they're due at the end of this week. And for the new schedule that's coming up for school with the morning people go, like Blues go in the morning and Bulldogs go in the afternoon, many students are hesitant and they're trying to switch to virtual because they don't want to come to school and then go back home, and so it's much easier for them just to stay at home. So most students that I've talked to about that just want to stay virtual for that case. And with there not being that many students in school to begin with, it's just easier to stay home. Besides that, nothing really much is happening in school. That's it.
Okay, thank you. So how are you managing with everything going on between courses and quizzes and tests and college stuff?
I've been managing quite well because especially since I work 2 jobs now. So I've been trying to spend 2 hours on college just every week or so, just to make sure I keep up with it. And with quizzes and tests, teachers give it weeks prior, so I have a lot of time to study. And with homework, teachers don't give that much homework anymore because it's just like classwork, and if you don't finish it during class, you can just do it for work. So we have like the whole class to do the homework to begin with.
Gotcha. Thank you. Any questions from board members? Yep, Ms. LeBrera?
I saw a number of students outside the school this weekend, I think it was Saturday or Sunday. Did they resume doing standardized testing for the kids? Is that what it was?
The SATs are operating, yep. Yep. We had to cancel one due to the shutdown we had right after Halloween because of the number of students who we couldn't identify who might have been through contact tracing. But yeah, the College Board has resumed testing. One of the things that we did do, and I think we may have mentioned this, I may have mentioned this, pretty sure I did earlier, with the Saturday test, students can sign up for that at any location. That has stayed the same. And some of our students, we lost some testing last spring into the summer. So we were able to get through the College Board an afternoon test window in October. And if you do it midweek, you could limit the registration just to your own students. So we were able to do that, which I think helped a lot of our kids get the opportunity not to get closed out from their own building, and also kept the better control, for lack of a better word, over who was coming in and knowing that they'd been in the building and have been okay in terms of health. But yeah, the testing is, I think, a little limited, but it's still out there. Roger, I think that's pretty accurate, right? What I said about the testing, the College Board?
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Any other comments by board members? All right, hearing none, I want to thank you for your comments and for letting us know how things are going and giving us good perspective. We always appreciate the student perspective. And if you do have other things to attend to, we understand, and you can feel free to stay, but if you need to leave, that works as well. So thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we are going to move on to the report of the superintendent.
Thank you. And before I get into my more formal report, of course, tonight we say goodbye to Ms. LeBrera, Sally LeBrera, who's been a member of the board for 2 terms, right, 6 years. And during that time, served as the vice president of the board for a number of years, was chair of the finance committee, policy committee, on other committees as well, of course, the strategic planning. And I recall, I guess, pretty close to 6 years ago, in a summer meeting in the library when we had to meet there, broaching the idea to the board, I did, of doing what I was told when I first became superintendent, is stay away from that R word, which meant referendum. And I remember having that meeting, and I remember Sally, along with a few other members of the board, being very supportive and saying the need to go forward with this. And if you recall, if you were on the board at that time, there was some mixed feelings at first about it. There was a concern about going forward, knocking on people's doors for the kind of money we would need to go forward. And, I think that Sally and others on the board felt that it was the right thing to do. And we had some very good discussions that summer into the fall and went forward with the study to get that going. So, if you think back to the 6 years, Sally, you've been on the board, all the things that have happened in this district, from kindergarten to preschool to 18 to 21 program to reorganization to referendum to one-to-one initiative, this board, and Sally, you a big part of it, and leadership role, has really done some incredible things, really rebranding what the district is in a 6-year period. And you were a big part of that. So I thank you on a personal level and on a professional level for that, and wish you well. Sorry to see you go, but thank you for all you've done for the district. I know I'm going to, like they do on the floor of Congress, cede some of my time now to the distinguished gentleman from Rutherford, Dr. Alati, who wants to say a few words as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hurley. So, Sally, I actually thought, Ms. Librera, you were on the board for 7 years total. Is it 6 or 7? Just curious.
It was 7 because I joined in between.
You joined in
two
between.
terms.
Okay. I just have to make sure for my remarks that we have the right number, or else it's going to have to change
6 works.
part of what I do. So back in my high school and college days, I took up an affinity for writing poetry. And something you may not know about me is that I actually won a poetry contest in college. When I was close to graduating, I entered a poetry slam contest, which I actually think I came in last place for. And a warning, my wife says that all my poems sound like I'm reading a Dr. Seuss book, but it's the thought that counts. So in dedication to you, Ms. Librera, and your awesome board service, I've written a poem in your honor to share, if it pleases the board. The poem is called Inspiration. 2013, with Gary and Diane, she ran for the board and the inspiration began. Sally Librera on virtually every committee elevates a discussion giving 150. Stewarding great work, she cuts to the core of what needs to be said or when the outcome should be more. Her perspective not just valued, it's counted on by each. Her knowledge of negotiating she could quickly teach. Her real job required hours of work to no end, yet at almost every single board meeting, Sally would attend. Her advice, her opinions, her fiery passion, her commitment to students she's demonstrated in fashion. During tough moments or proud ones with goals we needed to reach, Ms. Librera supported and knew how to give that motivational speech. I think we get it, we've gotten the gist. Ms. Librera, your insights we will value and miss. I thank you for everything as a Rutherford resident for making me feel comfortable being your 2020 president. Now, we've got you 7 of something to celebrate each board year. Along with Diane's home-baked brownies, we hope it brings you some cheer. We'll give you your gift a bit later tonight, and if you want to share any of it with us, we won't put up a fight. And now I bid you adieu. I hope you value this dedication. Sally, you've left a great legacy. You are a true inspiration. Congratulations, and thank you for your board service. So the one gift that we can give you during the open session is on behalf of the Board of Education.
Thank you, sir. Sure, you can open. And Mrs. Jones, you're distributing some treats?
And Mrs. Jones is distributing homemade treats, individually packaged to be appropriate for this evening, but in true spirit.
Okay.
You'll get, the ones who have children get a little bit more in their packets, so Mr. Gurley and Mr. Kelly, you get some, but you don't get as much.
That's okay.
This is lovely. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
That's- And,
So-
and thank you for the lovely remarks. I was thinking about, my term here, and I was thinking along very similar lines to what you had talked about, Mr. Hurley, in terms of all of the things that the school district has accomplished over the last 7 years, and it's really remarkable. And I think one of our proudest accomplishments as a board was hiring Mr. Hurley into the role of superintendent. And certainly all of the huge academic steps forward we took with the referendum, the Bulldog Academy, full-day kindergarten, the reorganizing of the schools, and really just a tremendous amount of work that I think shows that this is a district that doesn't only have a strong history and legacy of academic excellence and tradition, but is one that is quite progressive in terms of responding, anticipating, and leveraging challenges and opportunities. And I think certainly with the crisis that faces us all now, I couldn't be more confident in a team than in this team. And I want to thank everyone here on the board, Diane for roping me into this deal early on, and certainly the school community, the PTAs, the parents, the students, the teachers, the administrators, everyone here tonight. I've learned so much from working with each and every one of you. And as a parent and a community member, I'm so thankful that this is the team that's leading our schools. So it's been a pleasure working with you.
Thank you.
So there's a lot more that I'm sure I could say, but I'd like to open it up to other board members if anyone has anything they'd like to say on behalf of Ms. Librera. Start with Mr. Conti.
I don't know if I can follow it up with that poem. I mean, that was
Prose, please.
yeah, right. All I want to say is that, you've been an inspiration to me personally, and I thank you for personally getting me engaged in this, in the board, in the community, and you've truly, like I said, you've been an inspiration on everything about how a board member should act and your knowledge and experience that you bring to the board. Just awesome. I'm going to miss you. So thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
Mr. Haley?
Not that we saw this, your high school yearbook, but I'm sure it said most likely to succeed. You've done wonderful things for our district, and thank you.
Oh, thank you. I was actually the student rep to the board in high school. Spoiler.
It makes sense.
If I could just say that, I echo what Chris says, and you truly are a role model, and I think that, you embody professionalism. You will be missed more than I think you imagine sitting here tonight. I know, Jack said it, I think about negotiations, I think about some of the other situations that you're just always such a great sounding board, and, even recently, Sergio and I have had conversations that said, well, let's check this out. And so keep your phone on.
My phone's always on.
Unofficially, keep your phone on. You'll be missed.
Awesome. Mr. Sprayberry and then Ms. Jones?
For years I'd watch, I'd attend or hear you guys talk about it and everything. And I always said, maybe I will. And then I watched you in your professional career. And if someone at your level can do this and give it the same dedication, it was there was no excuse left on the table why I shouldn't do it. So that was tremendous. And again, Chris, everybody else, bowling, everything, we still got to go bowling. Yeah. but
Bowling game's going to get a lot better.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ms. Jones?
I think that when you interviewed, you were replacing Tom Casadante. And right after that, it was, Tom Griggs had left also, so Q2 was appointed. We had 2 openings at that point. And at the time, I thought, how can anybody replace Tom? And when you interviewed, you overwhelmingly said, oh my God, this is a gift from God. You were so fantastic from the very beginning. We all knew that you were going to be super good. But for me, your wisdom throughout our regular sessions, especially in executive session, you made us think over again. So I will miss you terribly. I hope someday you come back. Thank you.
Dr. Racine?
Yeah. Well, like everyone said, he'll be very missed. And I usually don't know what to say, in other words, and I usually say, whatever she said. Because you know just what to say, just how to place it.
Well, thank you.
So,
Huge compliment.
All right. Well, on behalf of everyone, thank you for everything you've done. Obviously, you see how you have been an inspiration to everyone, myself included, and you are truly going to be missed. We have you on speed dial, and you have worked so hard professionally, and to do everything you've done on the board, you really do leave a great legacy. So we appreciate and really value you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, it'd be fun to eat brownies and see what that other gift is, but I guess we have to, go through a meeting agenda, right? To continue with my report, I don't know if we got the Common Goals Inspection Report out yet. Well, we will get it to you, and so I'll just mention it now. The Common Goals Inspection is Advocate, who is our consultant for our custodial services, does a report, sets goals for the school. You've gotten these before, and you'll get it tomorrow electronically. The percentage this year, this period, the fall into winter, the target for the categories is 92% in every school, which is the highest it's ever been. We just set it very high. And every school hit it between 94 and 99%. Really remarkable job of keeping the buildings clean. And I think it shows also the amount of extra work our custodial and maintenance staff is doing to keep things clean. So when you get the report, we're very proud of it, and very proud of both our Aramark staff and our district staff and the work they've done. So you can take a look at that when it comes. But again, it's our best. We've always had very good reviews. This one was the best by far. Sally, to go back to talking about Sally, reminded me of this question that we talked about administratively for a while, and I just failed to inform the board, and that's the snow days. You've heard a lot of discussion about snow days. You saw it in the paper, and we spoke with the administrators. I mean, I knew what I wanted to do, and I spoke with the administrators, and they agreed. I don't understand the tremendous glee and joy that some schools had that you could go virtual on a snow day when they're built into your calendar, and you're not going to really do anything differently. We have that one day, right, in Memorial Day that we can give back, but the other 3 days, if we don't use them, we're not getting out of school earlier, we're not doing anything differently. And if you remember what it's like to be a student, or a teacher, or a principal, or a superintendent, in fact, that's that, you said a gift from God. Sometimes the snow is a gift from God, is that found day, and the night before, with all the ritual of inside-out pajamas and looking out the window and waiting for that flake. Now, as superintendent, really, that ritual's changed for me of watching the Weather Channel, looking at radar, talking to other districts, but for everybody else, it's a joy. I think of all years where anywhere from 20 to 50% of our kids are glued to a computer screen, and our teachers are glued to a computer screen since last March, to say, hey guys, it's snowing out, don't go out and play in the snow, don't have hot chocolate, but go on that computer screen, didn't make any sense to any of us. So we'll call a snow day if we would have called a snow day. Keep in mind, our K to 3 kids, right, are in school our 1 to 3 kids are in school for a full day. So, I think we're going to have a snow day. Now, if we run out of days, we'll use a virtual day, because I don't want to have to extend the school year or take away a vacation, right? And I even said to the REA, to the administrators, that if we have to use 2 snow days, I'll kind of get the pulse of what people feel like. Would they rather, if we have a third one, do a virtual day so that give back day is there in May, or would they rather use a snow day? We'll play around with that, but you can rest assured that if I think that one day we might get somewhere down the road is going to mean more to kids than one more day of instruction, and more to teachers and staff. I think a mental health day is needed more than ever this year. Okay, so we're going to stay the course with that. Update on COVID, there's really not a lot new. I've been keeping you abreast. Same process is going on for me in the administration. We look at data. We every day I get the update from the Board of Health, regardless of number of cases in Rutherford, the age of people in Rutherford, what they know about where the connection of people who've gotten it. I speak with either the Board of Health or the mayor daily about that. I speak with the county usually at least once or twice a week, or get communication from them. So our decisions are made on that. There has been a relaxation, that may not be the right word, but a reduction in how quarantining will take place from CDC. The New Jersey Department of Health has accepted that, and that reduction is, instead of it being automatically 14 days if you were in proximity, it now will be on the 5th day. If you get tested and you're negative, you can come back on day 7. If you don't want to get tested, you can come back after day 10. So that is a few more days that you don't have to be quarantined. Now, I'm not sure how it's going to play out with schools because, they've accepted it, but schools have always, we've kind of followed a different beat with Bergen County. And we haven't had situations yet since the new rules have come in. We've had a situation with an adult and the new rules were put into place, but not with kids yet. So we'll find out when that happens or when I ask about the interpretation. And a lot of times when you ask, you get a fair answer, which is we have to really see the context of when something happens, okay? We are going to stay the course right now with our planned schedule. We don't see any data to suggest that we're going to have more quarantining because right now we're quarantining anybody who's, like I told you before, with any distance. And that's not going to change very much because we're going to a split session day. We've had that split session day in the kindergarten center since day one, and we've had full day in 1 to 3. And we have seen less disruption down there. And there's a lot of reasons for that. The age of the kids, the way the teachers are scheduled, but the age of the kids and the way the teachers are scheduled not going to change. So I think we have to try to increase the education opportunities. Some of the numbers, as our student rep mentioned, are higher now for fully remote in grades 7 to 12. He cited a reason. I mean, I think there's a number of reasons. One may be the concern in numbers going up. I think the other, quite frankly, I'm speaking honestly, is the autonomy that students are given and have as they get older, and the fact that they may, and the outside school activities they take part in, which if they get quarantined, they can't take part in, like a part-time job or a co-curricular activity, which might lead them to not want to be quarantined. It's also the fact that some of the things that happen in school that really make high school, you think back to high school, you think back, like, Sally mentioned she was a student rep. You think back to the team you were on, the club you were in, the play you acted in, the activity. I used to tell the parents and the students at orientations that, the important thing we do in school isn't the play or isn't the basketball team or isn't the, whatever, but that may be the reason a kid's coming to school every day, why he doesn't want to be late, why he doesn't want to be absent, and that's where, the education does grab them, right? Some of that gets taken away, kids are like, I might as well do it from home. So I think there's a lot of reasons why it's happening. I think winter and cold and getting up, and if you could, you don't have to do it. So, this has been a weathering the daily situations that we get. The highs, the lows, the challenges, but the goal and the objective of providing the education we're supposed to provide, the opportunities doesn't change. And we'll keep working with it. And we have another end of January into early February is the next go round for students to either return and we'll see what happens as, the weather gets better, we get past the holidays, the vaccine starts to arrive, and maybe some of the climate changes. Okay? And then move into, unless there's any comments or questions about that, I'll move into facilities. Okay, a couple of updates on facilities. On the agenda tonight, there's a calendar for next school year with a start date for faculty and students after Labor Day, so that, traditionally when Labor Day's been late, we have, in the last maybe 15, Labor Day was always the unofficial start of school. And probably in the last 15 years or so, that's changed. If it's late, we bring the students in before, or sometimes just the teachers in before. We have a lot of work going on this summer. That's going to make last summer look minimal. We're building a gym at Pierpont, building a gym at Union, starting the work on the facade at Mortimer. I mean, there's going to be a lot, trying to get the elevator done at the kindergarten center. Some major, major projects. So in speaking with PSA and EPIC, in terms of, if you make one summer a little longer, the next one might be a little shorter. But I asked them, what are you thinking and what are you looking for, what would be the best help for you? And they thought the longer one would be the better help. So we'll come in with the faculty after Labor Day, the kids after Labor. We still get out, relatively early in June, 2 days later. But it's that idea of getting that full whole week without students and faculty in the building, which I think will be helpful. And should there be a delay, like invariably there is always somewhere, it also gives us more time to, figure out how to adjust room locations and things like that. In looking at next year's calendar, I'm glad it's on the agenda because I can't wait for next year's calendar, hoping that next year we're going to be welcoming back 2,800 kids and in the building at the same time and have an opening day district meeting and all the things that we can't do this year. So, we're hoping that that calendar is going to be a joyous start. And it also might help us in that regard, the few extra days to get things in order for what's going to be a new routine. Before I let Mr. Kelly walk you through the new pictures we sent you, we also have some bigger pictures to show of the same building tonight, of the same pictures, but bigger where you can see in better detail. The steel delivery at Pierpont is going to be coming. We mentioned this at Building and Grounds, and I think also strategic planning. Steel beams will be coming in. The cranes are going to be delivered this Friday, and then the steel's coming in the week of the 14th. And there will be some street closures for part of the day on Van Ness, some parking restrictions, and that letter, I believe, was delivered to the neighbors that will be affected in that neighborhood today. Signs will go up next week. We have Rutherford Police worked with us, and they'll be on site to help manage it and also to help people who have to get in or out to work around the delivery. So that's scheduled for next week with cranes coming this week. And now I'll turn things over to Mr. Kelly, and he'll guide you, and I'll jump in to look at some of the pictures. You all saw them. I think the two committees that discussed them comprised of, I believe, 7 of the 9 board members. So had a discussion. So for those 7 members, it's kind of a repeat performance of that discussion, maybe a slightly different version. And for the rest of you, I hope you had a chance to look at what was sent in the packet, and I hope the presentation helps a little bit.
Thank you. This is a little tighter than I expected, but this is the presentation that was reviewed with Strategic Planning Committee and with Buildings and Grounds last week. So most of you have already seen it. There were some requests for changes made out of those meetings, and we are working on those. But this is, except for one significant addition, these are the same. This is the same presentation you saw last week. We are working on some of those adjustments. PSA has asked for a little more time because they are working to get the bid package out for the Mortimer wing. So we'll just talk through what is here. Okay, this is helpful. Well, it's that was working before. No, there is not that many of them, but maybe. Then I gotta shut the screen down. Sorry, give me 1 minute here. No, no, thanks. Okay, that's not it.
That's one of the new additions for PSA. We're going to nice sunset. Okay. Plant some trees. Right? And the Spraberry, you want to church it up a little bit. There's the trees we planted.
James always gets pretty well.
That's real.
Church it up. Okay, well, so let me just walk through these pages here with you.
You want to have Steve take a look?
Well, since most everybody's gone through it, had a chance, the other 2 members who weren't in those committees had a chance to look at it over the weekend. flip through, the first page is the cover page for Union. Of course, I have to get my fingers working too. So we've added an overhead shot of each of the schools so we get a sense of perspective and street names so you can see exactly what we're referring to. The first page of renditions is page 4, I think. Elevation number 1, Belford Avenue. We've been through this. This is where we've ended up. Got the pillars, which bring back the pillars from the front of the building. The gym is in the background there. I'm looking at elevation number 1. Elevation number 2 is from Springfield Avenue. Now there are houses between Springfield Avenue and this view you're seeing here, but the part on the left is the gym, will be the gym, and the right half is the steps leading up to the original building. So that should give you a sense of what's going on. Please ignore the gray areas. Those are either existing grade or existing structures. So you're meant to focus on the not gray parts. On the next page is the view from Cooper Place. Again, that is the gym. And you'll notice that the original building, you can see that behind. So that is still, this doesn't rise up to the same level as the original building. So it's not as big as it looks, big and imposing as it looks. Elevation 4 is the alleyway, and you can see that number is referenced on the overhead shot to your right. This you really can't see. This is looking from the original structure across an alley to this building. You'll see some mechanical equipment up on the first floor roof there, but that's really not visible to anybody who isn't looking for it. One of the requests from, I think, the Strategic Planning Committee was to kind of see if we get bigger pictures here, which is what we're trying to do. I think putting it on legal paper was a big help, and I wish I had thought of that earlier. But we're still working on that. Next is Rutherford High School, the Mortimer Wing. You see the overhead view, the satellite view of the entire property. We are talking about Mortimer, the wing obviously along Mortimer Avenue. Looking at the first rendering, I had another picture here too I wanted to show you. This is, as we've discussed, we are actually discussing, excuse me, let me take that back. The horizontal screen you see on the far left of elevation 1 and on the far right of elevation 2 that currently says RHS. We've asked them, and the plans currently call for it to say Rutherford High School. We do have another option, which would have a picture of a bulldog. It would say Home of the Bulldogs. And then, if you'll remember, over that first, I'm looking at elevation 1, the doorway to the left, the 4 doors at the far left. Above that is a canopy, and the plans call for the words Rutherford High School to be attached to that, so you can so that will identify the school. So we're considering this Home of the Bulldogs on the left-hand screen. Just want to keep in mind here as you look at this picture, the offices directly over that 4-door entranceway are stairway and offices, and they are not frosted. The other entrances with the frosted windows are there because there are restrooms there. So there is a difference there. Elevation 2.
Mr. Kelly, can I just jump in for one thing?
Please.
On the horizontal, where it says Rutherford High School or Home of the Bulldog, and again, we did get these bigger pictures, which really shows it nicely, especially the Rutherford High School sign. We talked about the screens as being an alternate, the ones that you see along the entire building, but going in the base bid will be the screen there and the one you're going to see in elevation 2 at the back field for 2 reasons. One, they're the locker room windows, so there's a little better sense of privacy, but also because on the back end of that locker room, the field is adjacent to the field where there'll be lacrosse and soccer and other things happening, so it'll be a little more protection for those windows. So whereas the base bid will not include the screens like we talked about, there'll be an alternate so that we don't come in over budget and we have some decision to make. It will be in the base bid of those two, which means that we can pretty up that entrance, even if the screens don't get approved because of budget, or even if the screens are something we don't want to do, having it there will also give us that more aesthetic entrance when folks are coming into that main gym for basketball or wrestling or things like that.
So this one, Jack, here, this would stay?
The heart, yes.
This-
They're the locker room windows, yeah. And in the back, you see on elevation 4 where it says RHS, that's also that's the boys' locker room. And again, that's right, the field is right there. So it gives a little more protection too to those windows. And since we're starting a lacrosse team and it's going to be practicing out there, that we need as much protection as we can get, especially the first couple of years of the team. Yeah? Okay, Mr. Kelly. Well, see, that's good. I gave you got it back up and running.
Yeah, thanks for the cover.
Okay, I'll move again.
Okay. Okay, the next page has. That's it. So elevation 3 is the view from Fairview Avenue, as you can see. If you go out to Fairview Avenue now, you're not going to see this because the cottage, the portable building is out there, which is not scheduled for any work at the moment. All that's happening on this side is the glazing, or the windows will be replaced, and the doors will be replaced. Elevation number 4 on Elliott Place, which is the front corner by the nurse's office. That's just windows being replaced there. Pierpont, you have the satellite image there. Elevation number 1 on Lincoln Avenue.
Well, Mr. Kelly, we do have the page in. Yeah. Well, you do. There's a page in of this is from the first rendering, first presentation, that shows the building without the screens. So one of the things and they're working on getting this for us before January to make it look the same as what we just saw. Because one of the things we'd have to see is, going in as an alternate, assuming the bid comes in where we can accept that alternate, we want to make sure that everybody's happy with the screens and that they add some aesthetic value and also the functional value of having the ability to have the RHS logo and the like, okay? So that gives you a kind of a not an apples to apple look because of the lack of color, but an idea, and we'll get it fixed up for the next.
And just to clarify, the picture on the top, I know the call out shows it, but the brick is still the red brick that's out there now, right? It looks kind of grayish.
Yes.
Yeah, I said the
Okay.
color is
Yeah.
off on this
Okay.
and make it more true to life. But just, I think Sally, you brought it up at the strategic planning to see a picture, and we asked about that. But this week, again, they're in the rush to get the bid package out that's going out next week.
Yeah.
Well, not this week, right?
This week.
Yeah.
Yeah, these slides are really in there as a placeholder, so we'll get them in there, and they're more in line with the others, and then we'll look more consistent. Yes, to that point, we are going out to bid this week on Thursday, the 10th. Bid opening will be Friday, January 15th, and we'll be looking to make a recommendation to the board at the 25th, the January 25th meeting, assuming that meeting schedule was approved.
And one of the things I'm going to suggest at the January reorg meeting, 4th, I think it's the 4th, where normally there's not a tremendous amount of business. We do what we have to do that night, other than the reorganization stuff, and then, we pay some bills and the like. is perhaps have a discussion in anticipation of the bid coming in, and so that so that we don't waste time. You know, we get a feeling about, yeah, the screens are something we want to go with. So if it comes in with the bid, let's go with it. Maybe we don't want to go with it. You know, maybe we can come up with some thought, even if not on the 4th, you know, ahead of the 24th meeting, so that we don't have to discuss it and table it. We could award a bid. Okay? So more about that when the time comes, but just to look at.
Okay, I'm now looking at the page with elevation 1 and 2 of Pierpont School. Lincoln Avenue, nothing has changed here in the last couple months, but as you know, we had added some architectural detail here, such as the medallion over the main entrance there. The windows were made taller than had originally been planned. The soldier course of brick above all the windows, the double course of like a bullnose brick coming off the top. All of it just meant to improve the appearance of it. So this will be a major structure on Lincoln Avenue, so it's important to have it well defined. On the bottom, it's from the Wilson Avenue side. Again, there are houses on the far side of that, so that's not really going to be too visible to the average, to the students or parents or the average visitor to the school. The first floor on the Wilson Avenue side are locker rooms, so that's why there are no windows. Above that, there is a mechanical screen, so there's HVAC equipment located behind that screen. On the next page is the East Van Ness Avenue view. This is all gym, the gymnasium. The doorway on the far left is a stairwell into the classroom wing. And you'll see, again, here, just like at Union, the existing structure for Pierpont School rises quite a bit higher than this. So this is not, again, not as intimidating as you might think. So it's within the scale of the property. Elevation number 4 are just stage entrances. There's no windows on there because that is the stage. You don't want that lighting coming in when you've got a production going on. And on the last page, that's the view from East Pierpont Avenue. Again, you can't go out there and really see it because the portable building is in front of this. But this is what it would look like. There is a covered walkway planned for to get students and staff from these entrances into the portable building. They don't have a covered walkway right now, so they're subject to the elements. And to respond to an earlier question, these are actually, the columns there are actually steel, not fiberglass. This is what I told you, Mr. Healy. So that's what it looks like. It's going to look a lot better. It's going to look a lot better, a lot bigger, a little more detail. We'll keep pushing on that. Like I said, PSA has asked for a little more time on that. So that's the direction we're going in. Any questions on that?
Mr. Burr?
Just if you could, I don't know if you know it offhand, but if you could just remind me, when will those field houses be occupied or occupiable?
The what? Field houses?
The gyms, the new gyms.
Well, this Pierpont is scheduled for the start of next school year.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and Union,
A little bit later.
a little bit later. We may be starting the beginning of the year with the students in the current gym and then making a transfer over.
They'll each take about a year from start to finish.
Okay, so
Yeah.
hopefully in calendar year 2020.
Hopefully, I mean, the plan would be, correct me, Joe, I may be off. Originally, the completion date of the gym was going to be early August for Pierpont. With the changes we asked for in the window, shop drawings and the like, they lost about 2 weeks. So now the completion date is August 15th.
21 or 22?
21. So that still gives us a little wiggle room if they're a few weeks behind. Because then the students, for a few months in the school year, the plan would be to use the gym for Pierpont as a gym. The first demolition, right, Joe, is going to be the multi-purpose room, to get that going so for a while, the gym will serve as kind of a lunchroom gym, the new gym, and then move back to the multi-purpose room. They'll become more strictly a cafeteria, and then they're going to move to the work on the current gym, right? So we have to get the first gym up and running. So the goal is for starting September 8th, that gym's available. Union's going to be a little bit later, but the plan is going to be to, begin the school year in the old gym and then move over and then work on that as science labs. So if we stay on schedule, we should be okay.
Thanks.
I just have one question. So you talked about at the January 4th meeting, the idea of the board talking about the screens and whether or not we'd want to put that that's something that, we're sort of interested in. And I'm just wondering about a criteria. Like, because to me, the screens are sort of an aesthetic preference. And I know when we had a strategic planning meeting, or maybe even buildings and grounds, there was some different opinions. There's no wrong opinion, but whether people like the screens, prefer them, or prefer not them. So how do we envision that as a board in terms of our role? Is it like in terms of criteria? There's obviously functionality, the wear, the years, that what the type of like maintenance is for them. Just thinking about that going in, like how we should be thinking about it.
Well, I mean, the functionality is what it is. It covers up some things you want to cover. It adds a little more color and depth to the building. That's what it looks like. Okay? It's easily maintained, is easily cleaned, is easily replaced. It allows you to do the LED lighting, so you could put the Rutherford High School, the RHS. It allows you to do a little more with color to the building. So that's, it's not, it has a pretty good lifespan, I understand, of 30 plus years before you have to even think about replacing something, and they can be replaced, and they can be maintained. They can be taken down to get behind and things like that. So it comes down to, I think, the aesthetic of it. I mean, I know there's some folks who didn't like, I know the committee we met with liked the screens. I know the administration likes the screens. Part of it, this could be a dilemma. It's not a dilemma. This could be a decision that's taken out of our hands if it comes in where we can't afford them, right? But what we're being told by the estimators is that we should be okay with most of the alternates. And we're going to have about 9 alternates, right? I think something like that, which is what we did in most of the big bids, because you want to make sure you don't sink the ship for some things that you could live without, or some things you could do down the road another way. So I think, what I was saying is not that I don't think there's a big debate. I think there's just a discussion about it on January 4th, so that I would like to be able to come in on the 24th, because the goal is to get the contract awarded and be mobilized to start doing the interior work in a night shift in late March. And if we delay a decision on January 24th to like February, whatever the next date is, 17th, or it may be later with President's Weekend, we're not going to get in until maybe May. And as you can see, even with Pierpont early in the game saying, let's change the windows, right? It costs you a couple of weeks. So now so I don't, I think what my point was not to have a tremendous deliberation or discussion, just say, hey folks, what do you think, screens come in, we're going to shoot you an email on, when's the opening, Joe? January 15th? So, January 16th, 17th, 18th, you're at the board, you get an email, hey, we have the bids and we could do the screens. Our recommendation is going to be to do the following. Let's decide before the meeting so that we come in that night and we could approve the bid. So I don't want to think about it on January 24th. That's what I was saying. We can think about it now, so that prior to the 24th, we award the bid the way we want to award the bid. So that the next morning we could send that letter out and that company could get going to get mobilizing. Because the project that they all concern me in terms of being ready for students. This one concerns me the most. because you're basically taking apart 48, something like 48 classrooms or offices. Cafeteria, hallways, bathrooms, you know, and you can't open if hallways aren't available because of egress. You can't move kids, you know, you can't move 7 or 8, 9 classes and put them somewhere, right? So, you know, we don't want to delay if we don't have to delay. That's the point. So I think, you know, we saw, you're going to see hopefully even a little bit better pictures. You saw the pictures, you heard the discussion. We'll have another discussion early January. We'll see where and then we'll know, you know. And to me, like, you know, even if you love the screens, it's like going out to a restaurant where you love the special. Don't get your hopes up too high. They may not have it on the menu that night. You know, let's not love it so much that we're disappointed if the bid doesn't come in right. But I don't want to belabor it on that. I'd like to come that night with a consensus that we're going to move forward so we can have the thought process, the discussion ahead of time. If it really is at the point where we need to, we can have a committee meeting ahead of time, you know? We'll see where we're at.
Sorry, go ahead,
Mr. Med?
Yeah, I probably was at that meeting. I missed a lot about the sod. What's it, Mortimer Street entrance to the gym. We're just gonna have Rutherford High School over it?
And it's going to have over the screens. We said home of the Bulldogs.
That on that, yeah, that's the whole length of.
Above it, Rutherford High School.
Because it's so important when you go to a gym, somebody, and
Yeah.
you have to know that that's where the gym entrance
Yeah,
is.
it's Rutherford High School.
And then if we have, this is only, like for show kind of thing, you know, it's not, doesn't have any purpose really.
Well, you know, it's the outside facade. It's just what you decide to put up. It's like, you know, this vinyl siding or aluminum siding or cedar, you know, I think it has a little bit of purpose. Like I said, the LED, it has a little bit of protection. It covers up some of the pipes that are going to be exposed. But yeah, it adds some, if you think it has aesthetics because of the color and the depth of the building, it has that purpose, yeah.
No, I like the idea, but I can't picture it like, does this flat on the building or sticks out?
It looks just like that. It'll look flat, but it gives a little depth, so it's over a
Against the
column.
building.
Right. So if you hold,
There's a little space
Against one of the
there
window panels.
because we will be able to get in to maintain what's behind it.
Okay, and where are the cameras that are gonna shoot the image on, or how does that done?
lights are put in behind it, LED lights.
Behind it?
Inside, so it comes through, yeah, it's right, it comes through the screen.
Comes through the holes?
I believe so, yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Would PSA have an example of these in use on a building that we could just
Have a
view?
picture of the school that has it?
Or a place that you could go visit would be helpful.
We've been looking for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't have anything exactly like this, but we are looking.
Well, if you go to the first presentation, there were a whole bunch of pictures of screens, but they looked, you know, they were different kinds of buildings. When you see, I mean, some of the hotels in Atlantic City have screens with lights on them. Some of the buildings in Newark that were built, they have, some of the new stadiums have them. But, you know, this is a different kind of structure than that.
Mr. Conti?
So you said there's going to be LED lighting. Is it white light? Is it color changing? Or is that to be determined?
I would say to be determined, but I don't really have the answer to that.
Okay.
Chris doesn't know anything about lighting.
Just curious.
Mr. Burke?
So just one comment, since I'm not going to be at the January meeting, and just, I would think in terms of the functionality of this, one of the considerations should be the inside of the room too, because if I'm understanding the pictures right, and maybe I'm not, one of the panels, one of the windows is going to be covered with that, right? And maybe that's good, maybe that's intentional, but so I do think we need to think functionally about what the inside space looks like, you know, for the aesthetic treatment.
No, I don't think the window's being covered with that.
As I see that, it looks like
there's 4 windows.
There's windows that are going to be a darker color, right, Joe?
No, there's 4 window panes if, again, I don't know if I'm reading it correctly, but in the second scheme or color, there's 4 window panes. And one of the 4 windows will be.
Oh, one of the 4 window, I see what you're saying, yes, yeah.
And again, that may be preferable, but, you know, it would be something to.
There are holes in this too, so that's,
Right,
so there would be light still coming through that.
something to think through.
Yeah.
It's a consideration.
So in this first elevation here, it shows the blue vertical screens, but that is with the second color option, correct? It's the blue vertical, and then it's showing the gray.
Page 10 also?
Right.
10 also.
So I'm asking, so the picture that's on page 8, the elevation number 1, with the screens, that is with the color option B, correct?
Color option would be the blue, yes.
No. The windows and panels are the gray option, not the blue option.
Yeah, no, the windows and panels, there's a blue and gray
Right.
look, right.
Okay.
And then on the screenless ones, you also could have either all gray or a blue variation, but you'll see you don't have that same narrower strips, more gray, less blue.
Understood.
Okay?
Yeah, I think that's helpful. Mr. Sprayberry, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I do. I think my overall opinion is gonna be the functionality of it, when you got pipes and stuff sticking out on the walls and everything that they've talked about, even though they are gonna hide some of them. Your functionality of the screen is going to be for aesthetically purposes, people going down the street, and I'm all, they have a brand new $30 million building, they got, pipes hanging off the side. I think that's gonna be the functionality of these. And I'll go back to, I was the one that said those stock photos were awful, so no more stock photos.
Yeah. Well, to Mr. Sprayberry's point, I remember one of the first times that we brought up the idea of the Mortimer Avenue wing about 5 years ago in the process, because the first thought was, it's going to be too much money. And we were looking at, I'm talking about the beginning of the referendum process. And I remember having a meeting with, I said, and again, I lived in this building for 4 decades, right? And my first thought was, is it just an aesthetic thing that we're looking at? And then as we dug deeper, we found out about the energy cost and the ventilation system, all the stuff that was functional. It wasn't just aesthetic. But it did come back often to the aesthetic value of a person driving down a main thoroughfare past the building that's supposed to be the jewel of the district, the high school, right? And I do agree, again, with what Mr. Sprayberry just said. I think when I look, and granted, we don't have the same upgraded picture of the screenless building yet. We're going to get that, so you don't see the color of the brick and all that. But I just think the screens do make an aesthetic step up, and it looks like we've invested something, because the infrastructure is the biggest investment, I think, in this facade. But nobody sees that. You don't even know it's there. And this would say to people going by, wow, look at that, and look at the RHS sign, and look at the, But, that's just my opinion. It's not, I think it does add to that. So it looks like you got, because of the average person is going to be, looks like they just changed out the windows there, that kind of thing. I think this adds more to it. But that's just.
If I may, too, these screens do meet LEED accreditation standards, LEED being Leadership in Energy Environmental Design, so they do have that practical aspect as well, so help save on energy.
I'd make a comment about the lighting, and I think we should get a little more clarity in what they're expecting to do or what they'd like to do, because, with my background, I can definitively tell you that good lighting can make a bad building look good, and it can make a good-looking building look bad. So I think that's just something that we need to be aware of or I'd like to hear a little bit more from them, possibly, of what they're at least thinking of. So, because it'd be a shame to have this beautiful building, and then all of a sudden they do something and it just looks, you know, they flip the lights on and it looks terrible.
Okay, find out.
Good point, thank you.
Okay.
All right, I think that was a robust understanding gain for the screens, so thank you for sharing all
Okay.
that.
One more referendum-related question. Are the classrooms in Lincoln being used now?
No, they're not totally done yet or ready for use. I mean, they're just about done, but there are still some punch list items, the furniture is still in order, has to be ordered. We have a meeting tomorrow morning that Mr. Kelly will be at. I'm having with Dr. Polechko and Ms. Coy and Mr. McKay and Ms. Hohen to start to plan next year what we're thinking about for those rooms, how we think utilize them, looking at demographics of, does it mean any kind of restructuring in terms of balancing classes between, Washington and Lincoln, looking at those projections. Originally, those classrooms were not supposed to be completed until April. So it was never intended to use them, this year. And obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously, it's possible we can reallocate and reorganize where we wouldn't need additional staffing, but in theory, we're going to need some additional staffing if you're adding 2 classes, right? So they won't be in use till September. However, they very well might be put into use this year if we continue with students coming back to school, but still allowing students to be remote. So on the grade 1 to 3 level, if the remote numbers shrink a little bit, right, we might want to utilize a class, with like something like that. And it should be, my guess would be maybe another month of the punch list items getting done, where, I'm just guessing, right, maybe Joe, another month or so, where we could use the room if we had to.
That's great. Excellent.
So that's it for my report. I will also say that I'm having a tough time, like many people are, trying to keep track of what month it is. I know, Hanukkah, Christmas, New Year's are coming, but I still think it's the 4th of July. I'm still waiting for fireworks. So, but it is December 7th, and we don't meet again. So, again, extend to everybody happy holidays and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year as we go forward.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hurley. Next is a report of the president. Just a couple of brief remarks. So thank you to all the board members. Everyone has submitted their committee and liaison choices for the 2021 year. So that's been organized into a document in terms of people's preferences. And the next step is on January 4th, there's a reorganization meeting where the board selects the president and vice president. And then at that point, the president will work with Mr. Hurley on those assignments, and those assignments will be dispersed the last Monday in January at the January board meeting. If there are 1 or 2 committees that need to meet before then, they may meet with the current committee until we get to the end of January. Second thing, so after the new year in January, the RAA and the RSA negotiations will begin, and we'll be finalizing teams for that and be talking about goals for that. So look forward to that in January, and productive and collaborative negotiations to come. And then lastly, just a reminder to everyone to please complete the board self-evaluation when you can, when you have time. Would love to be able to come in on Monday, January 4th and say thank you, everyone, for having completed the board self-evaluation. The goal is at the late January meeting to go over and analyze the results of it. So I'd like to have at least 2 or 3 weeks to be able to do that. So if we could set a goal, January 4th, and if you don't think you'll be able to do it by then, just let me know. That's all I have. Any comments, questions? Well, I will just extend a happy holidays to everyone and another grateful thank you to both everyone on the board for all of your great work. Mr. Hurley and Mr. Kelly, great gratitude for everything. And we are almost at the end of 2020. So one way or the other, we're going to get to 2021. So best wishes for the next meeting. Will be in a new year with hopefully exciting things to look forward to.
Hope so.
So we are going to move on now to the meeting portion that is open to the public at 8:41 p.m. We will open the meeting first to anyone who is here physically who would like to come and speak. Okay, hearing no one who is here in person, we're going to go to Zoom now and see if anyone would like to unmute themselves and speak who is on Zoom. Okay, hearing no one, we're going to close the meeting at, or this portion of the meeting at 8:41 p.m. And now we're going to move on to new business where action will be taken. We are going to begin with personnel. Mrs. Ahmed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to first state that being personnel chair, I'm so proud of the board members here and their expertise and how everyone has such fantastic backgrounds to help this town, at this time. And I'm very proud to sit with them. We had, first of all, I'd like to report the personnel committee that we had on November 30th meeting. Myself and Mr. Conti, Mr. Healy, and Dr. Lottie attended, Mr. Hurley and Mr. Kelly also. Manager trust and recommendations made, Mr. Hurley provided an update on the Family's First Coronavirus Relief Act, FFCRA, noting that it will sunset on December 31st. The administration is not aware of any plans by the federal government to extend the act beyond that date. At this time, only 3 employees are on leaves of absence as permitted by the FFCRA. Such leaves must come to an end by December 31st, but may be extended under the Family and Medical Leave Act if applicable. Other employees have requested and received workplace accommodations in accordance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, which may continue if applicable. The committee discussed salary guide placements of certain administrative secretaries. And today I would like to read the motions 1 through, I think it was 15, let's see, 1 to 12. For the board's approval, I'd like to present it. Number 1, Joan Lord, retirement of Ms. Lord, physical education teacher at the high school with regret, effective July 1st, 2021. She's like a pillar in this community, right? 2, Kian Ostad, resignation for social studies teacher at high school. Eve Holiday Drofek, resignation of her, teacher assistant at the Bulldog Academy. Isabel Wall, to approve as a leave replacement special education teacher at Pierpont School. 5, Catherine Driscoll, to approve as a long-term substitute special ed teacher at the high school. 6, Deborah Bristol, to approve as a lunch monitor at Lincoln School. 7, Megan Gordon, leave with pay for our special education teacher at Washington School. It helps if I put my glasses on, excuse me. All right, Serafina Lespisa, disability leave with pay, teacher at Lincoln School. 9, FFCRA leaves, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those, and it was kind of odd. It was 1 teacher, and the rest are teacher assistants. 10, substitute teachers, effective December 1st, the per diem rate $90 for Kelly DeBello. Travel reimbursements, approve the following travel reimbursements for the 2021 year for Deborah Courtney and Gina Balistrieri. 12, Elizabeth Devon Neal, were to rescind the lunch monitor at Washington School, and that's it. So with the board's approval, I ask to please move personnel 1 through 12.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Ahmed. Any comments or questions? No? Do we have a sec?
I would just like to comment about Mrs. Lord. You said she's a pillar, I think, believed in the community. We'll talk more in June, obviously, but Ms. Lord has been a teacher here for over 40 years and head coach of volleyball for probably 20 years. And at every athletic, you can't go to a basketball game or a volleyball game or a wrestling match or a football game or any game without seeing Ms. Lord either working the clock or in the crowd. And is certainly been a colleague of mine now since, I don't know, 1979 or so, 78. So it will be a loss, but and we wish her well, and we have a way before she actually leaves. But a real Rutherfordian. I mean, is synonymous with so much of what Rutherford does.
And she also, I just have to say, she also must have worn a suit of armor because she taught so many of our children how to drive cars. She used to teach them
That's
driving
right.
lessons.
Yeah, she has
And
a-
you'd see her around town with every kid that you knew.
She has a driving instructor, and I tell you what, it's, I give her credit for that. Although it's easier when it's not your own, I found.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's easier when it's not your own.
So Mrs. Ahmed moved those. Do we have a second on that? Mr. Healy, any last comments? Hearing none, I'll ask Mr. Kelly to please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Librera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry?
Yes.
Dr. Oladi?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on now to curriculum instruction. Mrs. Jones?
There are 4 resolutions on our agenda for tonight. We did not have a curriculum and instruction meeting this past month. Number 1 is the school calendar, and let me echo Mr. Hurley's comments. Let's hope that we can return to September full swing like things used to be. That would be fabulous. Resolution 2, out-of-district placements. Resolution 3, field trips. And Resolution 4, of harassment, intimidation, and bullying decision. We would set forth and uphold the superintendent's decision.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Jones. Any comments or questions?
No.
And Mr. Early, you said there was nothing abnormal about the calendar for this coming year?
No, other than the after Labor Day start. But
Right, okay. And so where is that noted, after Labor Day?
Well, we start on Tuesday, September 7th, and Labor Day is Monday, September 6th. Some years we could start any time after September 1st. So if Labor Day was late,
Got it.
so then we would have ended June 22nd.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
Move resolutions 1 through 4.
I was just gonna say that I think it should be very clear that when school's open. I just got to say that.
Thursday, September 9th, school's open.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sprayberry, for clarifying. Mrs. Jones, you're going to move those?
I move resolutions 1 through 4.
Great. Do we have a second? All right, Mr. Conti? Any last comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll ask Mr. Kelly to please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Librera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry?
Yes.
Dr. Oladi?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on now to finance. Dr. Racine?
Okay, for finance, we have not had a finance meeting, and there are 3 items on the agenda tonight. Number 1, the approval of bills. Number 2 is a health broker services, which I'm going to ask for more clarity on. And number 3 is the Every Student Succeeds Act to file for a amendment for that. Okay. That's it. So, Mr. Kelly, can you please?
Yeah, the health broker services regulations require that we do some kind of procurement practice to get a health broker in here. We've been using the same one for about, I don't know, since before I got here. And the health broker falls into a slightly different category than anything else. You know, if you're going out and you're say, building a new wing, then you go out to bid, and there are certain requirements, and you have to meet those requirements so that you get to a point where you can award a contract. Health broker, there isn't really an identifiable final point with them. It's just kind of an ongoing consulting service. So it means we have to go through, the state requires that we go through this, the extraordinary unspecifiable services. So the way this will be working, it's really a request for proposals where you would set different criteria for what you're expecting from each of the proposals, from each of the companies that are proposing. So it's just a specific process for this actual service that we're procuring.
It was the first time I remember seeing the extraordinary unspecified services.
Say that again?
It's the first time I remember seeing the extraordinary unspecified services.
Yeah.
It seems a little, yeah.
It's kind of a unique thing, and I think it pertains to this and maybe a couple of other fairly rare type services, but it's defined. And number 3, did you need that, or?
I think for everybody else that.
Yeah, we get the ESSA, and every year it used to be. There used to be all sorts of things. ESEA, it's the No Child Left Behind, it used to be. Anyway, it's all these titles, and we fill out the application and we submit it, and you approve that in like June or July every year. As we move through the year, we get a final count of what was unspent from the prior year, and we can add that into the current year grant. So that's what this is doing. It's just giving us the okay to spend that money as well.
Right. So it's not new money.
Sorry?
So it's not new money.
It's not new money,
right?
no.
Okay, any comments or questions? Okay, hearing none. Dr. Racine, you want to move those?
You have to move items 1 through 3 in finance.
All right, do we have a second? Mrs. Libera, any last comments? Hearing none, let's Mr. Kelly to please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Librera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry?
Yes.
Dr. Oladi?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on now to policy. Ms. Libera.
So tonight we have 12 policies that are up for second reading and approval. These are the same policies that we discussed at last meeting and moved on first reading. So unless there's questions, I'd like to move those 12 policies.
Okay, do we have a second? Mr. Mazzone? Any questions or comments? Seeing none, unless Mr. Kelly, please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Librera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry?
Yes.
Dr. Oladi?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Okay, next we have buildings and grounds. Mr. Healy.
Yes, we did have a Buildings and Ground Committee meeting on November 30th, attended by myself, Mrs. Jones, Mr. Sprayberry, Dr. Oladi, Mr. Hurley, and Mr. Kelly. And at that meeting, Mr. Kelly reported on the status of the building construction and renovations, and he reported that they're running on time and on budget. The second item we discussed was the PSA renderings, and we had some discussion about that and suggested also about an enhanced presentation, which you have, Mr. Kelly and Mr. Hurley have forwarded to PSA. And I think partly the result is this version here. This evening, we have one resolution for change orders, and they're both for the high school as listed, and they both have to do with the contractor Practical LLC as listed. So I'd like to put forth this resolution for approval.
Okay, thank you. Any comments about?
I know the question usually comes up about these change orders. For this project, the allowance for change orders started out at $85,000. Right now, with the approval of these, there'll still be $48,000 left on that, and they're almost done with the project. So there will be extra money left, and that comes back to the board.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Racine?
So the credit for not installing the lintels, were they not needed, or they didn't install them?
They weren't needed.
Okay.
Okay, so Mr. Healy, I believe you moved those. So
Yes,
we have
I'd
a
like to move
second.
this.
Mr. Jones? Any last comments? Hearing none, I'll ask Mr. Kelly to please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Cabrera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry?
Yes.
Dr. Olati?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on now to old business.
It's not old business, but I just wanted to, something I failed to mention. I did mention in the communication that the next board packet for the reorg meeting will probably most likely be going out on Tuesday, December 22nd, as the 23rd is a shortened day and the district's closed the week, holiday week, Christmas week, New Year's. So be looking for it on the 22nd. Should there be a change because we're waiting on something to add or any delay, we'll let you know. But be looking for it on the 22nd.
Thank you. Any other old business? Mr. Healy?
Yes, I'll report on the New Jersey School Boards Association Delegate Assembly. Mrs. Jones and I attended, and there was one resolution that was discussed and voted on, and it passed. And it does impact all of us as board members. And I'll read it, and then I'll take a minute just to discuss it. But the Lodi Board of Education proposed new policy language supporting the requirement that a board member with a term of office extending beyond the next election must resign the seat currently held before submitting a nominating position to stand as a candidate for a seat different than the seat currently held by the member. There was a request to make the language simpler, and that didn't pass. But I believe what it means, and I'll ask Mrs. Jones and Mr. Hurley for some help here, but if you are currently a board member and there's a seat, say you're in your second year of a 3-year term, as an example, and a seat opens up for the election, you can't put in, according to this rule, you can't put in a petition for that new seat unless you resign your current seat. So you'd give up your current position to be elected, say, in November for a new, the other seat with a 3-year term. So if somebody wants to straddle their 2-year and they had the 3-year, so it extends them an extra year, and I guess it'd be an advantage if you evaluate how it looks to be elected. Mr. Hurley, I'll ask for your help on
That's
that.
how it sounds. I can't imagine why somebody would do that or if that was ever done, but I guess it was. I guess Lodi had a concern because they proposed it, right? But it doesn't seem to make sense to me that if you resign, you're 2 years left of your term, you run for another 3-year term. If you win that term, then the board would have to replace you and appoint somebody for a year and then have another election. I mean, it's almost sounds like it doesn't make sense. But yeah, that's the way it reads. So if anybody's planning to resign to run while don't do it. Right?
And then that goes to the New Jersey legislature for consideration and then possibly actual election law.
And Mr. Lee, that was the only thing they had to pass?
Yeah?
I would have canceled the meeting, I think it was.
They tried. They tried to, but it didn't work. One other item I have, Dr. Lottie.
Yes.
Again, Mrs. Jones and I attended the Bergen County School Board Association meeting. It was quite impressive. They had speakers there, and it was attended by way over 50 people. And the director of the New Jersey School Board Association, Larry Feinsod, he spoke, and others who are officers of the county, but they had two people from New Milford Public Schools talking about their programs for autistic children and other cases, and that was informative. And also the superintendent of Ramsey Schools, Matthew Murphy, he talked about SEL and mental health issues too with this pandemic. So it was informative and, worth the time. So, Mrs. Jones, do you want to speak about it?
It was a good meeting. The superintendent, is it Lou Delizio?
In Lou Delisio, yeah.
He seems very impressive to me. I've heard him speak a couple of times. But, it was explaining what it is. It's a hard year, and that he's looking forward to things getting better. But they were good. The Bergen County meetings are usually interesting. They try hard to get good speakers. And it's almost a virtual. If you can tune into them, you might enjoy it.
Yeah, Mr. Delisio has been done an excellent job in his role. He's been with us now a little over a year. He was a former superintendent in Bergen County, and he's very pragmatic, and very approachable, and understands what it's like in the districts and the schools. Dr. Murphy from Ramsey has been a leader in the county in terms of mental health programs. He is taken on as a real mantra for himself. And, most of the programs that we've been initiated for mental health and social emotional leadership have, if not come from him, he's been a part of committees. And New Milford, we visited, that was one of the districts that we visited when we were looking at things like our 18 to 21 program and our preschool program, because they were one of the districts that had those programs in place. And it was very helpful to go, and their director was very helpful to us when we looked.
Any other old business?
Just one
Ms. Jones.
other point. The high school, without having the play, did a wonderful. It was a presentation on virtual learning, and Julia Aletti, as usual, was wonderful. The kids did such a good job with that. A hard thing to do, I think. The play probably would have been a lot more fun and easier, but they should be complimented on another great performance. I really want to go back to the plays. It was still great. I mean, they're being very inventive of what they can, come up with. Very creative in their thinking.
Yeah, it was, and it is, I appreciate the students and the advisors and the directors and, coming up with ways. It's difficult with our choral program this year because kids really can't sing, We're now doing some singing with masks, and for the first phase, we were just humming, which I would have been very good in choir if you just had a hum. But it is a shame. I don't want to let it go under the radar either. I didn't mention it. And, we made such an appropriate major deal when it was volleyball and when it was football. But our boys soccer team, it's not the state sectional exactly, because this year the state tournament, they had to redo some things, made it a little different. They called it a region, so a little smaller than the section, but they won the regional championship. And I could speak from personal experience because I was the coach. We only got to 2 sectional finals ever, and we lost both of them. So that was always my claim to fame. At least I got to 2 of them, even though we didn't win. But now somebody got to one and won. And Coach Randazzo and the team really deserves a lot of credit. More importantly, I mean, his joy all year was just that they were able to actually play a season. They were able to be out and do it and keep healthy and get it done. And So to have a successful year like that, a lot of credit to him and to the team.
Made it possible for fans like myself to watch it on the
YouTube.
computer because they had it up in the paper.
Yeah, they ran a
And that's
YouTube
the
link
first
for the
one.
game.
They only allowed the parents in, which makes sense. But it was wonderful. I mean, I really enjoyed it. So, and the win, of course, was.
Yeah, and Mr. Kelly, not to belabor, but I think we're pretty, right, we're going to move forward with that camera thing. Yeah, we're going to have a system set up for, well, it'll be mostly indoor, but we can also use it for other things outdoors, where it's going to be a camera that gets installed by a company. They provide this to the high schools, and parents could pay a small fee, which would be probably less they would pay if they were coming to the games, and they can watch basketball and wrestling and things like that via streaming. So that's going to be something up and running, assuming the winter season actually operates. It's going to be up and running this year, and we'll have it going forward. So it's a small fee we have to pay, which Mr. Frazier was able to handle, and the rest of it comes off the subscriptions.
Will that be available for the rec teams?
Probably, I don't know what the contract reads, I didn't see it. And I'm not sure what equipment has to be utilized to. So I don't know, I guess I shouldn't have said probably not, I really don't know. But I could find out.
It'd be interesting. I mean, certainly if they're using, if it's easy set up, that certainly might be an interesting thing that the rec department might be.
I'll have David look into it, Mr. Frazier, and he talks to Ms. Lascano, if that's possible.
Especially in light with COVID, if, it's looking like most of the rec sports aren't going to be able to have any people.
No,
as
they won't have
spectators.
any.
Yeah, so.
Right.
Something-
I'll see.
I was just going to add that the JV soccer team went undefeated, and so they're coming up in the ranks.
Wonderful.
And for anyone who saw that play, it was definitely very unique. And listening to each of the students talk about quarantine, it took me a little bit to understand what was happening, like the theme, and but it was really great. I think a highlight or a low light, depending on who was watching it in my house, was my daughter was helping to MC, and I obviously didn't realize when I evidently, in one of the shots, came up from my basement door, and I walked out, and I got a flyby on video, and 3 parents texting me saying, "You were just in the video." Like, super embarrassing. But congratulations to all of them. They really did a nice job. Legislative update.
Nothing to report this evening.
Okay. All right, so at 9:08 p.m., we are going to open the meeting to the public now for any items related to or not related to the agenda, starting with in person.
James Bogosian, 155 Home Ave. As a community member, I just wanted to thank Sally for her many years of service to the board. As a former candidate, I would like to thank her for not running, which gave me the opportunity to join because I had never intended to run against anyone sitting at these tables. And as a future member of the board, I would like to complain for the high bar that she has set for me, and also complain that I will not be able to serve with you. So, thank you.
Nicely said. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Well said.
I like that guy.
Thank you. Anyone on Zoom who would like to make a comment? Okay, hearing none, and at 9:09 p.m., we're going to close this portion of the open meeting. And we do have an executive session that'll take us about 10 minutes to address 3 personnel matters. So do we have a motion to, no action will be taken? Do we have a motion to go into executive session? Mr. Mazzone, seconded by Mr. Sprayberry. All in favor?
Right.
All opposed? All right. Thank you to those who are here this evening.